The Natural Resources Council of Maine is a Maine-based volunteer organization that presents a feasible and practical approach to natural resource and environmental protection. The Council advocates for a nonpartisan approach to environmental policy, allowing them to focus on their conservation efforts with little outside influence. Continuing into its 55th year, the Natural Resources Council of Maine is now the largest environmental advocacy organization in the state, with $6.5 million in assets, 22 staff members, and over 16,000 supporters. Our brief documentary explores what exactly the Council does, how it operates, and how its members contribute to its goals. For our first insight, we traveled to the Council's headquarters in Augusta to speak with its Executive Director, Lisa Pullman.
Predominantly, we are working on state-based policy, and we are the leading organization doing that, so we're really setting the environmental agenda. We are, as I said, Maine created, so there was no national organization that came and put us here. NRCM was formed by Maine people, and it remains a Maine state-focused organization. I mean, our work is essentially at the policy level, in the State House, trying to figure out what are the rules going to be on how we're going to treat the planet and how we're going to live here and not ruin things. And I always think of our policy work as on two levels. One, we have a team of experts who work here. We have 6 lobbyists, one for a director of each of those 4 project areas that I mentioned, plus Pete Dittesheim, who you saw recently. He's our advocacy director. So being the experts, having the information, helping legislators figure out what are the next issues, how can we push this issue forward that I care about, helping draft legislation, all of those kinds of things are extremely important.
But for the Natural Resources Council, actually getting thousands of people to regularly write letters and make phone calls in support is unfeasible. This is a classic symptom of what political scientists and sociologists call the collective action problem. To overcome this social barrier, the Council has begun an annual tradition of what they have called Citizen Action Day, a day for mobilizing those who would otherwise remain politically uninvolved.
So once a year, right in the thick of the legislative session, we hold a Citizen Action Day. We invite all of our mailing list and folks to come to it. The purpose is to educate those people about what are the big issues that we're in the middle of working on in the legislative session, but also to help them get over the hurdle of what can feel quite intimidating. Some of them have never stepped into the doors of the State House. Some of them have never called their legislator. Some have never met their legislator. So we actually do a briefing on our issues, have the different project leaders get up and say, you know, we're working on trying to move solar energy forward, here's the bills. We're working on trying to stop these weak mineral mining laws, and here's why. And then we all walk over to the State House together, and I perhaps would have the group from Scarborough, and I would take them and say, here's your House member, here's your Senate member, and then let them have a conversation.
One method the Council uses to mobilize their base is informing them of the possible consequences of inaction. They emphasize that environmental irresponsibility can cost the state taxpayers millions of dollars in disaster cleanup costs, increased energy prices, as well as lost tax revenue.
That we have seen in our analysis of mining operations, the companies with the collapse of commodity prices may quickly shut down a mine and leave the site with insufficient cleanup funds and transferring that cleanup obligation to the people of that state or whatever the jurisdiction is.
Opposing interest groups, like energy and manufacturing firms, do their best to hide these costs. Typically, these firms turn to consultants who analyze large sets of data to make a seemingly compelling argument in their client's favor. At a recent NRCM meeting held in Brunswick, Pete Dittesheim of the Natural Resources Council of Maine gave a speech that focused on open pit mining and the role of these consultant firms.
It's a consulting firm that we believe is essentially captive to the mining industry, not a objective in any way sort of consulting firm that would be bringing a balanced perspective, looking out for the environment and for taxpayers. They're not going to propose rules that would offend any future client or push the envelope here in Maine in a way that other states might want to establish higher standards.
Political advocacy and action organizations like the Natural Resources Council of Maine play a critical part in the American political process. They provide a nonpartisan, expert perspective on issues that otherwise can be very emotional. But they also play a more intrinsic role in what really makes that process work, making citizens feel like they can actually make a difference.
Maine has a very accessible legislature. These are folks, we have a citizen legislator. These are folks who have other jobs the rest of the year. They don't have big offices, big fancy offices. They're kind of hanging around on the third floor of the State House. You can go up there and find them or send them a note in their committee meeting and they'll come out and say hello. And so it really is possible, and that is what you want to do.